Welcome to Conversations with Educators, where we bring educators from across the country to talk about topics like college and career readiness, graduation tracking, teacher growth, assessment coordination, and more. Let's get started. Okay, well, I am going to go ahead and just start making introductions so that we can have all the time in the world for our amazing panelists to speak and chat with us today. So, again, happy Thursday. I have the right T day now. It's not Tuesday. Tomorrow's Friday, and everybody I know is looking forward to the weekend. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for finding the time to spend time with us. We know how valuable your time is, and we truly love these conversations and getting to speak with some of the best in our industry in testing and education. This is a great topic as we are all, I don't care what part of the country you're in right now, we are all buckling up and getting ready for the bulk of our testing. Not that testing doesn't happen all year long, but we know once February ends and we slide into March, April, May, June, July, and so forth, it just keeps going. So we want to help bring some sanity and some structure to your season. And basically, if you've joined us before, you know this goes pretty quickly. I'm going to introduce our guest speakers, and today they are going to be sharing their insights on the emotional toll of test coordination, how to lighten that load, some real world support systems that save time, help accuracy, and support accommodations. We all know that's one of our biggest challenges in test coordination at the district and campus level. And then how structure will help protect your people. And we all know the ongoing conversation of educator retention is a challenge in today's time. And so, how are we helping build our people up so that they want to stay doing what they're doing next year, not give up? So quick introductions. I am sad to say that Katie Gomez from Humble Independent School District is unable to join us. The, the stuff, I think several different kinds of illnesses have hit her and her family. And so you all think good thoughts for them for a quick recovery. She was so sweet. She's like, it's really hard for me to say no to this. And I think most of us in our positions, it's hard for that too. So, you know, she must be really not feeling great. So think good thoughts for her. We have Jennifer Payne, who is a guidance counselor and also campus assessment coordinator for Baker County High School in Florida. And then we have Joanna Sorrells, who is a district test coordinator for Plano Independent School District in Texas. So this is where I am going to be quiet. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Introduce Max Gregory, who is our VP of Customer Success, and most of probably anyone on the screen knows who he is. He really helps get our customer support team going all year long, and especially as we gear up for testing. And then I didn't even introduce myself, but I'm Laura Miller, and I'm excited to be with you all. I've been with Test Town for 9 years now with Max, and we truly enjoy working with you all and getting you what you need. So I'm going to stop sharing screens so that everybody can see everyone a little bit clearer. And Carrie, we can't forget Carrie. Carrie's with us too, one of our amazing customer success representatives that helps people as well. And Max, I'm going to throw it over to you to start working through the questions.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Laura. And again, Jennifer, Joanna, thank you for joining us. So the first, topic we talked about is the emotional toll of test coordination. And we were joking before coming on, like it's a thing. Like it can either drive you to tears or excitement when things go well. So kind of turn it over to y'all, maybe talk a little bit about systems, things you would recommend for districts or schools, really just to kind of help provide that support that they need so they don't potentially fall apart. And I didn't say who goes first, so I will kind of y'all choose.
I don't know, Joanne. Do you want to talk from the district level and then I can kind of do the
Sure.
school?
Perfect.
Okay, so I'll go first, and I'll just say one of the biggest things was when I started this job, I felt and just in general with test coordination, people will feel just super overwhelmed. A lot of this is living in your head, and you feel like you're constantly forgetting something. I would say one of the most important things is first know that it shouldn't be a team of one. So I always joke around in my district and say you have to find your dream team. So that's going to be coordinating with, special ed, counselors, the tech group, administration, just making sure everyone's on board with supporting test coordination because it just has so many different facets. I would say a very good tip is to pause before you do things and really think about just prioritizing if it is something that has to happen now, if it can happen later, or if it's something that isn't absolutely essential, that's just something you want to like add to your systems down the road. And that can always be something you can work on when you have that like rare downtime. And other than that, I'd say one of the best resources we have, at least, or we're fortunate to have in Texas, is our professional network, because we're able to rely on them for different templates, questions, sanity checks, just kind of know that there are other people out there that are doing what you're doing. And so it's a nice resource to have. So that's, I would say, what has helped with our overwhelming feeling as a whole.
Well, I started as test coordinator. We're actually the only high school in my district. And I love to hear you say, Joanna, about not being a team of one, but I literally am a team of one at my high school just because we don't have additional people in our district who do what I do. And, not having other high schools. And so when I came into test coordination, it's been about 5 or 6 years ago now, extremely time consuming, could be very, very overwhelming at moments, and then always trying to correct mistakes. That really frustrated me. I would think I was doing such a good job keeping track of everything with all my different lists, and then it didn't seem how hard I worked or tried. When it came down to test day, there would be some error that I would then have to try to fix in the moment, and that was, for me personally, that drove me crazy. Recommendations I would have is to start preparing early. This is actually a good time for me in February to start thinking about spring testing, because there's a little bit of a lull here, where I can start looking at things that, and I didn't always do that. I'm more of a in the moment kind of person, and I realized I needed to back up, kind of like you said, and prioritize things and put them in a better order. I learned to make checklists, of have I done all, because there's so many parts and pieces when it comes to testing. And then with this question they gave us ahead of time, I put get test hound as something I would, just strongly recommend when you start feeling overwhelmed. It has been an incredible blessing to me. That structure in particular has just helped me keep from working weekends. I'm not working as late into the afternoons and evenings. I've gotten more confidence in how accurate my process is. I'm not making as many little mistakes, and I don't have to do as much of the comparing and updating and correcting all of my different lists. And so figuring it out, whether you're doing it on your own or you have a phenomenal program to help you with it, you gotta figure out what your system is. You gotta keep checking all the little parts, and you really do have to start early.
Absolutely.
Thank you both. I'd love to hear that. And so one of the things that you both mentioned a lot in kind of this next topic is really just about those systems. Jennifer, you talked a little bit about that, like the saving time. Both of you mentioned ensuring accuracy. Um, and maybe, some of the questions are, where do some of those errors happen? Maybe where it's happened in the past, maybe where some things are that you found like, okay, we have a system now, but I think all of us can say there's always room for improvement. But I guess, Jennifer, if you want to go ahead from the top, from the district level, sorry, Joanna, and then Jennifer, we can kind of turn it down to you at the school level. I'm just going to, Laura, the days, people, it's almost Friday.
All good. It's all good. Okay, so I would say that the issues that we see the most that probably impact testing is those last minute changes when a student has an ARD meeting. Again, it's the unavoidable ones that just have to be scheduled right before testing, right after someone may have created a testament and test hound. And it's that communication piece that really is the issue in making sure that your special ed contacts have communicated that to whoever's coordinating that test. And I think it's when there isn't that communication, that's where things may fall through the cracks, even though we have systems in place like Test Town and the amazing autopilot alerts that come in, just making sure that when those are accepted, the ones that require you to manually go into our state system to enable prior to testing actually happen. And so it's just making sure that when those changes happen, that there is a line of communication, because when there isn't, that's how we see certain things fall through the crack.
And I think systems, that's, I think, the difference between a larger district and a smaller district, because I saw a lot of that too. But we have one guidance counselor who does our, I think you said ARC, it's our ESE IEP students. And so I had a really hard time before Test Hound making sure that information was communicated with me, because they're wrapped up in their own overwhelming responsibilities and data keeping and meetings. And so with Test Hound feeding in from same goal, and it did feed in from, I can't remember what the prior one was, I would get that alert, every morning, and I would make sure I checked those kids in Tide, which is our test management system. And so that's where my biggest errors, like you said, those last minute changes a lot for me too, was if a new kid enrolled or one withdrew. Those were other lists I was having to double check. And if I didn't the day before the test, you just never know when those changes will happen. And it was more with the new enrollees. A withdrawal is not as big of a mistake or concern. But if you have a new kid and now you have to do makeup testing instead of the original, and then they don't have anywhere to go for the original test. And so to have that feeding from Skyward, I know immediately that I have a new kid in school. I know immediately that a kid has withdrawn. Those were some mistakes that I was making on a pretty regular basis. Little, but they were still, just some of those aggravating things that I don't have to deal with as much. Once I got the more reliable process, and I improved in my own process my first few years, but still never to the point that I was as confident with what I was doing once we got Test Hound. And that's kind of what I put when I was thinking about this question, having more confidence, spending less time checking lists, fewer errors. And then I really thought less dreading beginning the process. Like
Yeah.
sometimes when it's time to plan a big test, I just, don't want to even start it. But with Test Hound, when I know how it's going to go, it makes me dread it. It less. I don't dread it, I guess is the way I should have worded that at all. And so I've been very, very, being able to filter the accommodations. That's a little thing that I learned just recently in Test Town. And as far as placing kids in accurate testing rooms for those accommodations, those things have helped a great deal.
It's very true.
Um, and so before we kind of get to the next question, there was actually one that was dropped in the chat too, maybe, and we can kind of talk about, because I think they fit with this idea of system. So one is recommendation for uploading accommodations. So in both Florida and Texas, you have the test attribute report where you can take the accommodations from test down, upload them into your testing platform. And questions about how far out do you do that first time? And I'd be kind of curious, like, what are your processes then when, because we know things change, like, do you keep that going? How do you maintain that?
So I'll go ahead and start off in our district. We first start the school year with, and this is something I've created over time, and that is our CTC activity calendar for the entire year. So where I start with is wherever we have the first day or our district selected test dates, we go back 2 weeks before that day, and that is the day that our campuses coordinators are responsible for creating their test events and then loading the appropriate files into Tide, which is also our online system for testing. And then it is after that kind of test event day is what I call it, or cutoff deadline. From that point on, the CTC really needs to monitor, in our case as well, since we're a test town district, monitor those alerts and maintain the both updating what's in Test Town in case it impacted a student's setting and seating, or going into Tide and doing that manual adjustment. We've also incorporated some additional checkpoints between those 2 weeks of making sure that we go into our tide system and we have created kind of a crosswalk comparison that identifies, above grade level math, that identifies the EOC eligibility and accommodations all in one type of spreadsheet. So that way we can make sure that what we're seeing in Test Town is appropriately enabled before that first day of testing. And that's always a requirement that we have our CTCs do about 3 days before the first day of testing. And that's just to help ensure that accuracy, that as many eyes and opportunities to check those reports and comparison have been done before testing. So about 2 weeks out, and then another one about 3 days prior to testing, to answer the question.
Yeah, and I don't have as much of I love that. And I probably should kind of plan it out that way. The way it works with us in Florida is before the end of January, there's a deadline the state requires that our student information system be uploaded to Tide with all of the accommodation information in it. So then what I do through Test Hound is monitor the autopilot, and anything that is changed after that mass upload at the end of January, I then manually have to go into Tide and either add it or take it off of the students' accommodations in Tide. And I just kind of keep doing that along and along. So when I check Test Hound and I have an autopilot alert, then I'll double check the student in Tide and make sure that what's in there is accurate for what currently the student has on their IEP. And I just kind of do it, I guess, and then hope along and along that I don't miss anybody. But I think having a more specific date to make sure all that's double checked is a really good idea.
Awesome. Love that. And then there was one more, and I guess it's kind of along the same lines about staying on top of the tests for students, that, turning on those flags as appropriate for them. So I guess before we jump to that next one, it kind of fits in the same thing as systems. Joanna, Jennifer, I mean, do you guys have any guidance on new students coming in or changes potentially to course enrollment that would change those flags that you can provide guidance on?
Right. Well, so I think the message I tend to give my CTCs is stop and pause. We're thankful enough that we do have our 2-week subject test windows. So whenever you do have that new student, thankfully they can be tested on a different day as a makeup. And we always say stop, pause, check our state assessment history portal, make sure, they're appropriately placed. Let's say we're not sure if they're what is on level or an alternate level assessment. We will have to pick up the phone, contact the prior school if we're waiting on records, do as much digging and diving as we can into who is that student and seeing what type of supports they may need before testing them. Like, there is never a rush. We do have our district selected dates, but we in our district say that 2-week window, we're going to make sure all kids who need to test have that opportunity. And so we may be testing a lot of days or every day within that window, but we're just going to make sure everyone has what they need and just stop, pause, and then make sure it's right, so that way you don't have that irregularity on the back end.
Yeah, and it does depend on the timing of that enrollment. Sometimes we have about a 2-week, we start May 1st, and it goes through the end of the month, but our finals start on May 18th. So we really have about 2 weeks to get all the tests in. And it just depends on when they come in, whether there's time ahead of time to make sure they're taking the right tests, or whether that's done later and they participate in some of the makeup sessions after testing's over. But I agree with Joanna on that. You don't want to throw a kid in and just assume that's where they should be. You got to make sure that you are giving them the appropriate EOC, and if they've already taken it somewhere, that you have that information as well.
Awesome. Thank you all for taking those questions. Okay, so the last one, and it's really about structure protecting people. And I think Laura had the best way of saying it. And when we talked about it before, it's retention. Testing is a stressful thing. And I don't know, I will say, as a kid who took, date myself, the tax test way back in the day, or TOS, actually not tax. And then you get here, and then I was doing it at a high school. it's so different than what you see maybe walking into a room versus you're the one who's responsible for it. So uh, just love to hear your feedback on maybe the systems you put in place to help kind of protect your group, your school. Teachers are also a big thing when you're that CTC and you want to make sure they get that information out. But would love to hear your thoughts on that.
I'll go first again. I will say that I think one of well, in a really weird way, the best lessons we learned from COVID were that when we have to document as much of our processes in place, so that way, as you have staff members who, for instance, like Katie, who was unable to join us because she was sick, if you have that backup person who needs to step in, that they have some documentation and guide to help lead what their actions are, like what they're supposed to do. So documentation is really big for us. We do try to support our staff since we have so many different campuses, and they also have different duties on campuses with timelines and checklists that kind of break down how far out they should do certain activities. And some of my CTCs definitely appreciate that because they will block out the time in their calendar day to say, like, I need to work on this task 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out, or I need to start collecting supplemental aids and, checking them by this date. So it just helps to put a process in place for them and also to carry that down to their campus level. And we're also very big in our district, and I'm very fortunate enough to have some team members to help support creating our own step-by-step guides to how we do expect things to be done. And that just kind of helps give some uniformity to it. And our campus test coordinators are also our assistant principals. And so that's just a big task in itself. And I hear it all the time from our new APs who come to join us in Plano who are terrified of testing because they may have been at another district where they did have to do testing, but there wasn't that support in place. Just having them give me that feedback that they truly appreciate the documentation, the planning aspects. They love Test Town, the guides that we've put in place to kind of walk them through our office hours every week where they can hop on a call and share their screen and we can guide them through just becoming more comfortable and familiar with the whole process so it's not so scary. And then to avoid the tears, because I always say there are no tears in testing. Like, it's going to be okay. We'll come up with a solution and we will be successful at the end of the day. So I would say those are the things we do. Like, we're trying to not train them, but really prepare them for the unexpected, prepare them for the test, and make sure that they do that with their staff as well.
And I agree. My first couple of years without Test Hound, luckily when I got into the position, I was pretty proficient with Excel and pretty good at downloading reports from our student information system. But it's a lot, and it's a lot and then me figuring out my own timelines. And I didn't know how long it would take to cut up tickets and sort them by rosters. And I was there until 8 and 8:30, just thinking I didn't know it would take that long. I had no idea it would take that long. And so some of those things you just kind of have to figure out your first or second year. But I'm glad you mentioned Test Town again, Joanna, with the new APs. I was the first one in our district to really latch on to Test Hound as the high school test coordinator. It was just such a lifesaver. And some of our newer test coordinators at the other grade levels, younger ones, I'll be honest, have kind of latched onto it too, because their ability to learn something new, especially in the technology world, they have greater capacity for that. We still have one counselor at one of our schools in the district. She does it her way, but it's an elementary school, and the amount of testing they do there is not near as massive as it is when you get to secondary. So, it's just, I've become more efficient having had experience and then using, Test Hound. Not having to figure out, your own way so much, like those AP says, now that we have Test Hound, I don't have to necessarily figure out how to do it. I just figure out how to use Test Hound to the best of its ability, and it'll kind of take care of that for you. And then that knowing you have an efficient, reliable system And then with the structure in Joanna's district of timelines and when to get things done and the support that you can have with that, I think is a very good way to keep people from burning out too quickly. You know, they feel supported, they feel like they have a procedures and process to follow, and they have a reliable system to work in and not having to depend on all of these different lists from all of these different places. Um,
Yeah.
and
I'd
it's
say
allowed
the last
me, I'm sorry, one of the questions on here was, you know, how has that helped between the systems and the morale? And I think it's also given me more energy and time for my other responsibilities. And I can't imagine being an AP and a test coordinator. I've been an administrator, and that is all consuming. Where I can schedule my days a little bit better, principals and administrators cannot schedule anything, you know. And so to have a system that makes testing more efficient so you could have energy and time for your other responsibilities is a real blessing.
I will say one last thing, that the biggest compliment I get from my APs, it just makes me smile, is when they say that the resources we provide them with Testtown being that tool to coordinate everything in one place with confidence, that when they say, I really love testing, and they're sad to go to another campus and potentially not be in that test coordinator role, just how much they appreciate what we do have in place for them, and having that tool, because some of them do remember the days before Test Hound to having it, and are just saying it's like night and day. And it just gives back time for them, gives back time for their own personal sanity, time with family, and then time to do all their other duties. So it's not as overwhelming as things can be. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That makes our heart sing. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, that's really what our entire team, our goal is to do that for anybody involved in this position. We know, we all personally know how hard it is, either at the district or campus level, and that is truly our team's goal, is to make it as easy as possible for you. So thank you for sharing that. I do want to say there were a couple of individual specific district questions in the Q&A, and that's just a perfect way for us to lead into, we are here to help you. You can create a support ticket through our ticketing system. We now have a real life person chat feature, which is pretty fun. I had a friend in a district say, I think I'm just going to start chatting with somebody at Test Town just to see what's going on. So anyway, I know people have been excited about getting to talk to through chat a real person as well. So reach out when you have specific questions about your campus or your district. That is what our team is here to help you do and make better. I know through our help tab, we have still Carrie and Max help me. I call them office hours. Test on tune up. Am I saying the right
Test
thing?
down tune-ups.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. It's to me like, campus office hours. You can log on. One of our team is just sitting there waiting to help you through anything that you're seeing on your screen and work through you. So take advantage of those. And just know that really is our true goal, is to help you make the next few months as easy as possible. We are a team working with you to help you achieve everything you need to achieve. So hang on one second. First of all, while I'm sharing my screen one more time, thank you, Joanna and Jennifer, for your insight. Again, these are just some of our favorite conversations to have, is letting you all share your tips and tricks with your colleagues. Texas and Florida are both fortunate to have great networks as well, and some of our other states too, but I think they're especially strong in those two states. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for letting us support you. Just a reminder again, I think I've already said this, our company's goal through all of our products is to help get kids across the finish line. We want them to be successful in their testing. We want them to be successful in their journey to graduation with our Pathway product that helps with that. And from a wife of a current assistant principal at a high school who is dealing with evaluations, and I'm listening to, it's all hard. Everything is hard. We have another tool now to assist with that, and it's some good stuff. So if you have any questions about anything else that you're not using, reach out to any of us. We can get you in contact with the right people. But again, I'm just going to give you we can do this. We can do this. We can make it through the spring. We're here to help support you. And thank you again, Joanna and Jennifer, for your time. And until next time, everyone I hope knows where to find us, and we're here for you.
Thank you for having us.
Bye. Give me some pom-poms and I'll cheerlead.
I probably have some somewhere.
I tell you, when it comes to test sound, I'm ready.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. If you want to learn more about college and career readiness, graduation tracking, teacher growth, assessment coordination, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Until next time.